those who are affected to be able to come and find what they need to be able to deal with the situation.
And you feel like you're in a safe place because you are in your church and you do have a relationship, you know, somebody that you can talk to. But do you find that people are still embarrassed, that they don't want to talk about the fact that they are HIV positive?
Absolutely. I mean, there's still a great deal of shame associated with the disease itself. I remember when I was with my then husband and dealing with, you know, hospital visits and late night trips to the emergency room. And while I was not the one who was infected, there was still a certain amount of, you know, rejection that I experienced just simply because I was with someone who was infected. And so that has not changed. There's still not the kind of atmosphere where people can share openly their HIV status, which attributes to why people are not getting tested.
Wow. And so what kind of response have you gotten from the book based on your story that's in the book?
Well, the responses have been really phenomenal and very encouraging. One, because I know that when people hear a real story of someone who dealt with it and the kind of fortitude and drive and persistence that my husband had to be able to live with the disease and not allow the disease to be, as you said, a death sentence. I always say that it's one thing to deal with death, but are you willing to deal with life? Are you courageous enough to live in the face of this kind of situation? And so when people read the book, they're really inspired because they may not be dealing with HIV/AIDS, but they may be dealing with some other life situation.
And so how did you actually publish the book? Now, you're a self-published author,
yes,
correct?
I am a self-published author, and the book was published, and it really came out of my passion for people to know the truth about the disease, to know the truth about how my life was saved. You know, so that because of the decision to abstain, my life was saved. And I wanted people to know that that is a viable decision. It's not something that's, you know, Pollyanna, pie in the sky for a select group of people. No, it is a life-saving decision. And that's what I wanted people to know. So the way the book was published was I had an opportunity to be around my pastor who had self-published his book. And in working with him, I had a chance to see firsthand how the process worked, so that by the time I really felt an urgency to get the book out, I knew the components and the process on how to publish the book.
And that really helped you to kind of avoid some of the pitfalls that go with actually self-publishing a book.
Absolutely, because there are lots of pitfalls. I am a writer. My background is in marketing and communications, so the writing aspect of it wasn't the challenge. It was more of just working with making sure that the product was representative of, you know, what it is I wanted to communicate. Because, you know, sometimes you can have something in your heart, you can even have it in your mind, but putting it down on paper in a way that is universally understood is where the challenge lies. And you may think you're saying it as clearly as you possibly can, and someone else will come along and read it and say, I didn't quite know what you meant by this. And then, you know, so you need a team of people around you who are well-read themselves, who can really provide some constructive input on the final product.
And so can you give your contact information for people to contact you to get more information?
Sure. I can be reached on my website, which is JulietteDavis.org, and that's JulietteDavis.org, or you can email me at jdavisministries@AOL.com.
So in the ministry, what is the message that you hope people get from looking at your life?
Oh, first of all, that they are overcomers, and that my first inspiration is that the overcomer in them is awakened. And everybody is not aware that they are an overcomer until they're facing adversity. And that's when you have to make a critical decision about what is it that I want to do? Do I want to be a victim or do I want to be a victor? And through the book, I want them to see my life and see that you can overcome. And that no matter what life circumstance you may be facing, there is still hope and there is still an ability for you to even take that situation and be empowered to help other people and to turn that situation into a testimony as opposed to just a test.
And I often find that even in my own life, as I am growing, the tests just keep on coming and keep on coming. And so it's important for me to identify just what you were saying, that, as you are growing, the tests will come, but you don't, give in to that because you are an overcomer. So how has your relationship with God really helped you to propel your life to another level?
Oh, that is really the focal point of how my life has been catapulted to another level. One is because of my faith and just being courageous enough to put this kind of information in print and not be concerned about what people will say and how they will feel. It is a provocative book because it is a in-your-face account of decisions that I made that saved my life. And I know that in the culture that we live in, everybody is not advocating abstinence, and then people don't really believe that that's realistic. But I'm telling you that in the face of the data that we're looking at from the Centers for Disease Control and the number of people who are living with this disease unknowingly, that you really want to go with a choice that's going to provide 100% accurate results. And that's abstinence. And I know that that's not a popular thing. Yes. So my faith gives me the courage to be able to say that message and to stand by it, because that's the only reason why I'm here today. If I had been involved sexually with my then husband, I would be infected today. And my life choices would be different as a result of that infection. And I know there are millions of people who can make a different set of choices if they had the right information.
And so what kind of advice would you give to someone that's watching today that kind of thinks maybe it's possible? Would you recommend that they go get tested?
Oh, absolutely. I think, Renee, knowing your HIV status is the first step to being able to take control and not live in fear or denial. I think that fear obviously paralyzes. It keeps you from moving forward. It's bondage. And so in order for you to be able to live and live it in abundance, you have to first know your HIV status. You can go to your local health department, you can go to your private physician, but you should definitely know your HIV status. Now, when I say this, I always add a footnote, and that footnote is this. Your HIV status is only as good as your lifestyle. So if you go and get tested tomorrow and you test negative, but then you continue behaving in a manner that will expose you to the disease, then that test actually doesn't mean anything. So your lifestyle really is the determining factor as to how you want to live and whether or not that HIV test is going to matter or not, because it is only as good as your lifestyle.
And do you find that people do not want to get tested, or they're afraid to get tested because they do not want to know the results? What if I am? How will that affect my life? And like we said earlier about some people see it as a death sentence.
Well, yeah, I know that people have lots of thoughts that are kind of, tormenting their mind about what would happen if I am positive. But let me just say that it is so important to know rather than not know. And the knowing, first of all, empowers you so that you can save not just your life, but the lives of others. There's lots of medical resources that out here that are available, and so your life can be preserved by knowing. Secondly, it's important to know so that then you can begin to assess your lifestyle and how you've been living, and whether or not you want to continue down the same pathway or you want to make some changes.
And it's so important to identify that if that is the issue, that it's time to make change.
Absolutely.
And change can be very good.
Yes. I think that people are, as we've heard many times, traditionally resistant to change, but I am a firm believer that change really is the first step to your getting to, your destiny or your desired goals.
So what is Juliette Davis Ministry all about?
Juliette Davis Ministries is all about really giving people the kind of information that will change their lives. I have the opportunity with some 20 years of communications background and probably as much time in ministry to see people dealing with all kinds of life challenges and life situations. And the focus of Juliette Davis Ministries is to give them the tools and the resources that they need to be able to see that they can come out of and overcome whatever life situation they may be dealing with.
And so you have the book, you do speaking engagements. Do you also do any coaching or counseling with people?
I do counseling through my role as the Chief Operations Officer at a large ministry in Richmond. I do have many counseling opportunities there.
Okay, now did you always see yourself as a writer?
No, I didn't. I will tell you, I really began to write when I was put in a position to work in the area of public relations. My background prior to that was in marketing, but I really didn't consider myself a writer. And I had to begin to crank out press releases on a regular basis.